So originally I was going to reply to a bunch of YouTube comments, have a better discussion, and give proper answers to it, but then I realized I should go over the deck list for Legacy Cup, and so it's an easier form to consume, and I can link this around easier. Plus just overviewing the event a little bit. So for the Legacy Cup player breakdown in Virginia, we had 11 Bruce, 4 Orfist, 2 Zorga, 2 Nirvana, 3 Overlord, 3 Bastion, 3 Seraph Snow, 2 Magnolia, 1 Bear Magnus, and 1 Iron Anchor Resentment Dragon. Oh, bless your soul, Jet, for playing that deck. It was so stupid. If you go to the stream too, I'll link that in the description. I think like the first match that they play, because we got it set up round 2, I think. We didn't set it up round 1. He's playing. It's 2 players with Nirvana mats, with My Hero Academia shirts, and not a single Overdress card in sight. It was great. But Bruce ran with this event. Top cut is 1, 2, 3, 4. That's surprising, actually. There's only half of it is Bruce, 2 Overlord, 1 Orfist, 1 Seraph Snow. That's actually super interesting. But Orfist highly represented. I mean, my bad. Bruce highly represented. Orfist was second most represented, and this makes a lot of sense since this deck just isn't counterable. It's so one-dimensional in what it wants to do, and it doesn't care what it's facing, to where it's very safe in a way. And of course, it can go for late game too. It could just physically assault its opponent with large columns, rush them out of the game. There's a lot of you can play very slow, you can play very aggro with the deck, so it's quite good. But I'm going to go over the deck list similar to what WCC Kai does, except potentially more in-depth, because he has so many lists that usually he's not able to discuss them, and potentially to give context behind them. So this is Mustafa's list. This is the list that won the entire event, and okay, so there are 3 things I think that we're supposed to talk about, or that like I should mention. The first one was the over trigger. So people, I don't exactly know how to explain why people have just shifted from the Cray Elemental over trigger into the Dark States over trigger, but I don't know exactly. I should have talked to him about this before to get better context, but this being able to act as an additional crit to push your opponent in is pretty important. He's playing, because if you think about it, this is essentially your extra copies of a draw, heal, and crit. This is an omni trigger in a way, so it has everything, especially up front, because it's, you know, it's going to grant you the highest amount of power. But because of that, I know that he didn't play many draws. He wanted the fronts for offensive capabilities and defensive shield, which makes a lot of sense. There's some lists in Japan which are just playing like nothing but draw triggers that I don't fully understand, and that me, Mustafa, Audi have been trying to figure out as to why Japan plays it. But I think the ideology is just to play it super, super slow, and like just ride swing for 3 turns, don't do anything until turn 4, and then the draw triggers on your drive checks and damage checks should allow you to see more cards, and then turn 4 you just blow them out of the game potentially. 3 dog, this makes a lot of sense. There was a different list playing 3 Protobulb, which I heavily disagree with, because Protobulb is super important for what you need to do when you're going to just cycle cards from Field of Soul to hand and just put them everywhere. Dog is a very good card early game if you want to throw this down so that you can poke your opponent in, and of course you can throw it down turn 2, double swing if you want to, and then turns 2 onward you can use this to play more aggressive, give something else 10k to fight over D triggers, and there's a lot of versatility. But I understand why it's played at 3, because you want to fit in 1 Jared. This card is super weird, super interesting, because you can put this behind the Vanguard and have it get sucked up by Marjorie. So, because anything behind the Vanguard usually is a blank space. You don't care what it is. So, you can have behind Vanguard, give something 10k because of a skill, and then if for whatever reason you have this in the front row, you can use this in the Nirvana matchup, so they can't intercept with Urger because he prevents intercepts when he attacks. So this is quite interesting. Eden play, super good in the mirror match. Nice for board control as well, since it could attack a side and you can have the on hit still activate. So you can swing side. If it hits, then you target the other front row or back row if you want to get rid of something. You can board clear with this. This is super important in the mirror match also, because you can threaten your opponents with like 1 or 2 Edens so that they need to drop cards for them to have the soul charge for their forerunner, for their starter, for their ride line, and to allow them to get the extra draw soul charge. Leonard makes sense. 3 Helldive. I make sense for 3 instead of 4 because it's a little bit of a dead card otherwise. But there's also room to separate the order and your persona rides for you to have 10k to the front row, like in either instance. Because like if you really want to, you can use both to like burst your opponent, but you could also like split them so that you don't like have all gas like turn 4 and then be really awkward turn 5, because then turn 6 you're not going to have 3 final rush turns unless you're super fortunate with your soul charges and how you want to. No, not even. Like, it's super hard for you to get 3 final rush turns. Like, 1 makes sense, 2 you can do it, 3 you're struggling, and then 4 you're about to deck out. But overall, I think that this list is more likely to be net decked moving forward. Of course, results-based logic, it won, but I think this list shows a lot of trends throughout all the Bruce lists, and this is just a culmination of them. Moving on to second place, this is Team Best Girls Orfist profile. He has a profile of this on YouTube that I'll also put in the description or like somewhere. I also go over this in my deck profile, which is currently rendering. So I didn't have a discussion with him on this because I didn't know that he was playing a playset of it. But after watching his video and the same reasons that I mentioned in my video, that I understand the value of this card now, because this being able to attack or remove Leonard, Marjorie, potentially any of the Overdress cards too, and certain things in Bastion is very nice, because you have board control with this, the grade 2, and Eagle. Eagle was not as impactful as I wanted it to be personally, but definitely this card can help you in certain matchups like Magnolia, Overdress, or Nirvana, Bastion. There's a lot of instances where this comes up, so like I get it, but everything makes sense. The only debatable things I would say about this is playing 9 copies of the order, 9 orders, but I understand why he's doing it, so I don't blame him, especially with his mentality. I totally understand. Okay, another Bruce list. Everything is the same except for this to help soul charge, which I can totally understand. I heavily disagree with a 3 protobulb, because if you don't you can really hurt yourself by not seeing it, and there's a lot of bad scenarios that can come up if you don't see this, because this isn't going to allow you, if this is at 3 copies and you don't see it, you're not going to be able to recur the persona ride to your hand or any other combo piece that you need to if you're trying to set up for next turn or whatever it might be. 4 copies, I think this is a little excessive. I understand why though. 3 to 4 is debatable, especially on how hard you want to, how often you want to see it. You can always discard it for red line if you see it early and you don't care for it. Trigger line is the same, but pretty good otherwise. Like, I understand why everything is the way it is in the deck list. This is the one prison deck that made top 8, and I didn't even know. Or actually, this is the 4th. This is the 4th list. So this made top 4. I didn't even know this deck was in top 8, actually, because everywhere I looked, it was just like Bruce, and I just didn't notice. So it's kind of interesting. He's not playing like midi grade ones. I get why this is in the deck, um, but it's weird. Okay, it's done. I get why this is in the deck, but it's weird. He's only playing one copy of the order, which is interesting. I wish I had more insight actually to discuss this. Like I could have a conversation with the player, because everything in this deck makes sense except for one copy of the order, and he's not playing any of the grade 2 order for Orfist that makes a token. I definitely thought that would have made the list, if anything, because these copies of Lamone are like super awkward in my mind, because I feel like I don't want to rely on this card hitting. I don't want to have this card essentially be gated by my opponent's skill, because against good players this isn't going to hit, and they're going to remove this and it's not going to stay on the board. And even then, there have been instances where I have played games, I let this hit and they take back cards from my drop zone that I already used for ride line, and then I would get them back and then just smack them, which is super like hilarious in my mind, because I interacted with the prison matchup to have it be in my favor, which is like super weird. Like, I guess he won because he took the units, but it's a very strange interaction. It's very exploitable. Because, like, this Orfist is also, this deck's super hard, super worst matchup, if anything. But I think the list is pretty alright and solid. This is what I ended up talking about when I went through my comment section. This Overlord list is pretty vanilla, and I might experiment with something like that. I think this is almost my exact list too. Yeah, except for like one more draw or something like that. But the real Madman is 11 front Overlord. I have no idea how this worked, other than supposedly he swung like Overlord into double sides just to clear them out, and then he would use the front triggers if he checked 1 or 2 to swing with the sidelines into the Vanguard, so that he could have 2 card guards. It is super awkward. I wish I could have seen this deck in action, because I wanted to see how he played it, but it makes a little bit of sense, because then you're just buffing up your front row so that you can hit them, and you're going to play a super late game too, because you can use everything to grind out whatever deck you want. It's super nice. I'm going to test out like iterations of Overlord, so that so I can make a new deck profile on that and update it. Another Bruce deck. This is Sarah's. So this is Sarah's deck. I recognize because of the front triggers. She's not playing any draws, which I like disagree with a little bit, but not entirely. She has an offensive trigger lineup, which makes sense. 3 dog makes sense. 3 puttable, I disagree with. Double Jared, I understand why, or at least I think I understand why she was playing this. I think she took a little bit of inspiration from Mustafa, because I know that they were talking about this like the night before. Like, she put 1 in, but personally I would like take like 1 Jared out for like the additional protobulb or something like that. Maybe adjust the trigger lineup. But I know that this list is like personalized for her and her playstyle, so like I heavily commend her for doing it. Also, once again, like, people are just not playing the Elemental Overtrigger, right? Yeah, like, people just don't care for that. This is... what is that? Oh no, I don't know what that is. I don't know what this card is. Oops, I wish I could look this up right now. But I don't know what that is, but that's interesting. I'll look it up later and possibly put it on screen. Playing draws, crits. I think this is... I don't think I fought this guy, but I know that someone that I was fighting had like a higher crit count, and this is probably, yeah, to play slow early game and have crits so that you can push your opponent in at higher damage, so then your turn 4 can potentially burst them out of the game. The Mabel, I understand why this is in the deck. I don't think this is that great of a card, but I totally get why it's there. For what it allows you to do. For dog, I guess I understand why. You could throw this down early and be aggressive. Protobulb, I guess I understand why. But I dislike that it's at 3 copies instead of 4. Overall, yeah, 2 copies of the order, which I think is interesting. I feel really foolish for not knowing what this card is right now. But there's probably a reason why this is at 2 copies, other than like the personal choice of like he just might not like it that much. And then I think this is Mustafa's, right? I think that's it, yeah. There's a 4, 6, 7, 8. Alright, yeah, that's everything. So, once again, huge thank you to the players that showed up. Commentators were Peter Van Allen and Edward Van Mans, and this was held at the Guild in Virginia. Top 8 players in the deck listed are posted below, so I'm going to put this also in the description somehow. And top 4 ended up splitting, so all these players ended up splitting. Mustafa won. This is Team Best Girl. He has a profile on his channel. Bruce, Sarah Snow, Overlord, and Bruce. Okay. Alright. Thank you very much for watching. Leave any comments in the feedback for criticism to let me know what you like, let me know what you dislike, and thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.